The story begins on a Friday night, the kind where sports fans are glued to their screens waiting for something unforgettable to happen. And boy, did they get it. The game was already electric. Two of the biggest names in women's basketball, facing off against each other. On one side, there was the reigning WNBA superstar, known for her fierce competitiveness and unmatched skill. On the other, a rising NCAA sensation who had taken the college basketball world by storm with her sharpshooting and confidence. As the clock ticked down in the fourth quarter, the tension inside the arena was palpable. Every pass, every shot, every block mattered. The crowd roared with every play, but one particular moment stood out, a heated exchange that no one saw coming. It happened when the NCAA star attempted a long-range three-pointer. The WNBA player, standing tall and focused, timed her jump perfectly and swatted the ball away with authority. The block itself wasn't unusual. It was what followed that caught everyone's attention. After rejecting the shot, the WNBA star turned toward her opponent and mimicked the shooting motion, almost as if mocking the way she had released the ball. To some, it looked playful, a bit of trash talk within the heat of the moment. But to others, it felt personal, almost like a jab meant to embarrass rather than just compete. Cameras zoomed in on the NCAA player's face, capturing a mix of frustration and hurt. Social media erupted instantly, with fans debating whether the gesture crossed the line or was simply part of the game. Fast forward to Monday morning, and the buzz hadn't died down. Instead, it had grown louder, thanks to one man, Skip Bayless. Known for his bold opinions and knack for stirring up controversy, Skip didn't waste any time diving into the debate. Sitting across from his co-hosts on Undisputed, he leaned forward, his expression serious, and dropped a bombshell. "What we saw on that court wasn't just competitive fire," he declared. "It was disgusting. And I'll tell you why. It reeked of racism." The studio fell silent for a split second before murmurs of disbelief filled the air. Even his co-hosts seemed taken aback, exchanging hesitant glances. Skip, however, wasn't about to back down. He went on to explain his perspective, pointing out subtle comments the WNBA star had made during post-game interviews. According to him, these remarks carried undertones that couldn't be ignored. "You don't have to say the words outright," he argued. "Sometimes actions speak louder than words." His statement sent shockwaves through the sports community. Within minutes, social media platforms were flooded with reactions. Some defended the WNBA star, calling Skip's accusations baseless and irresponsible. They argued that mocking an opponent's shooting form wasn't inherently racist, it was just part of the competitive spirit. Others, though, sided with Skip, believing there might have been more to the story than met the eye. Debates raged online, with hashtags like #Bayless Outrage and #Wilson vs. Clark trending not just in the US, but globally. For casual viewers, the whole situation felt surreal. Here was a rivalry that had started as a battle between two talented athletes, now spiraling into a conversation about race, respect, and accountability. Fans who had tuned in expecting highlights and analysis found themselves grappling with much heavier questions. Was this really about racism, or was it being blown out of proportion? Could Skip Bayless be trusted to handle such sensitive topics responsibly, or was he using them to boost his own ratings? Amid all the noise, one thing became clear. This wasn't going away anytime soon. The players involved hadn't said much yet, leaving room for speculation and interpretation. Meanwhile, Skip continued to dominate the narrative, refusing to let the issue fade into the background. His unapologetic stance only added fuel to the fire, drawing both criticism and praise in equal measure. By Tuesday afternoon, the story had reached far beyond the world of sports. News outlets picked it up, framing it as a cultural moment rather than just another sports controversy. Talk shows invited experts to weigh in, while late-night hosts joked about Skip's latest rant. For better or worse, the incident had become a national talking point, shining a spotlight not just on the athletes involved, but also on the broader issues of competition, media influence, and racial dynamics in sports. And so, as the week unfolded, people waited anxiously to see how the players, and Skip, would respond next. Would the WNBA star address the accusations head-on? Would Caitlin Clark break her silence and share her side of the story? Or would Skip continue to push the envelope, regardless of the consequences? One thing was certain. Whatever happened next, the world would be watching. The fallout from Skip's explosive comments spread like wildfire, and by Tuesday morning it felt like the entire sports world was divided. On one side, there were those who stood firmly behind the WNBA star, defending her actions as nothing more than competitive banter. They argued that mocking an opponent's shooting form wasn't unusual in high-stakes games. Heck, even some of the greatest players in history had done similar things during their careers. To them, Skip's accusations seemed like a stretch, an attempt to turn a routine moment into something far more sinister. On the other hand, plenty of people agreed with Skip, believing his take had merit. They pointed out that the NCAA player was visibly shaken after the block and the follow-up gesture. For these fans, it wasn't just about the act itself, it was about how it made her feel. And because the two athletes came from different racial backgrounds, the situation carried extra weight. Some viewers said they couldn't ignore the possibility that race played a role, even if it wasn't intentional. The debate raged on, with neither side willing to budge. Meanwhile, the person at the center of the storm, the WNBA star, remained eerily quiet. Her social media accounts were inactive and she hadn't given any interviews since the game. Fans speculated endlessly about why she wasn't speaking up. Was she ignoring the drama to avoid making things worse? Or was she strategizing, waiting for the perfect moment to respond? Either way, her silence only added fuel to the fire. People began reading between the lines, interpreting every tweet, every Instagram story, every photo she'd ever posted as evidence supporting one side or the other. It was the NCAA player who broke the silence first. In a carefully worded statement, released through her team's official channels, she acknowledged the controversy without directly addressing the accusations of racism. She started by thanking her supporters, saying their messages meant the world to her during a tough time. Then she admitted that the incident had left her feeling hurt, not just as a player, but as a person. "I've always tried to compete with respect," she wrote, "and I expect the same in return." Her words struck a chord with many fans, especially those who believed she'd been unfairly targeted. Some praised her for handling the situation with grace, while others urged her to stand up for herself more forcefully. Regardless of where people stood, her statement shifted the conversation slightly. Now, instead of focusing solely on what had happened during the game, people began discussing broader issues like sportsmanship, respect, and the pressures young athletes face when thrust into the spotlight. Skip Bayless, however, wasn't satisfied. When the NCAA player's statement hit the news cycle, he wasted no time responding. During his next show, he called her remarks calculated and accused her of playing the victim card. He insisted that her feelings were valid, but argued that she needed to own her role in the rivalry too. "This isn't just about one moment," he said, leaning forward in his chair with that trademark intensity. "It's about patterns. It's about accountability. And it's about having honest conversations even when they're uncomfortable." His co-hosts looked uneasy, shifting in their seats as Skip doubled down on his earlier claims. One of them cautiously suggested that maybe the WNBA star's actions weren't racially motivated, just poorly timed. Another tried to steer the conversation toward more neutral ground, emphasizing the importance of unity in sports. But Skip wasn't having it. He brushed off their concerns, insisting that avoiding hard truths would only make matters worse. As the days went on, the public reaction grew even more polarized. Some viewers appreciated Skip's willingness to tackle difficult topics, crediting him for sparking important discussions. Others accused him of exploiting the situation for clicks and ratings, pointing out that his show's advertisers were starting to pull out due to the backlash. Social media became a battleground, with hashtags like "Bayless is wrong" and "How is truth over comfort" dominating timelines. Memes mocking his dramatic delivery flooded Twitter, while petitions calling for his removal from the network gained traction. Amid all the noise, another group emerged, fans who were simply tired of the drama. They took to forums and comment sections, urging everyone to focus on the game itself rather than the controversies surrounding it. "These are two incredible athletes," one fan wrote in a viral Reddit post. "Why are we tearing them apart instead of celebrating their talent?" The sentiment resonated with many, sparking a small but growing movement to shift the narrative back to basketball. By Thursday, the tension showed no signs of easing. Sports analysts weighed in, offering their perspectives on everything from race relations in sports to the ethics of media commentary. Some praised Skip for shining a light on uncomfortable truths, while others criticized him for oversimplifying complex issues. Meanwhile, the WNBA and NCAA issued vague statements encouraging mutual respect among players and commentators alike. Neither organization addressed the specific allegations, leaving fans frustrated and hungry for clarity. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed that both athletes were under immense pressure from their teams and sponsors to resolve the situation quickly. Rumors swirled about secret meetings and phone calls aimed at finding common ground. Yet, publicly, nothing changed. The WNBA star remained silent, while the NCAA player stuck to her original statement, refusing to engage further. For the average fan, the whole ordeal was exhausting. What had started as a thrilling matchup between two of the brightest stars in women's basketball had devolved into a messy, emotionally charged debate. Conversations around dinner tables and water coolers revolved less around dunks and three-pointers, and more around questions of fairness, perception, and intent. It was clear that this story wasn't just about sports anymore. It was about society, identity, and how we navigate differences in a world that often feels divided. And yet, despite the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Beneath all the anger and frustration, there was also a desire for understanding. People wanted answers, sure, but more than that, they wanted resolution. They wanted to see these two athletes rise above the noise and remind everyone why they fell in love with the game in the first place. Whether that would happen anytime soon, though, remained anyone's guess. By Friday, the controversy had reached a fever pitch, and Skip Bayless was front and center, refusing to back down. If anything, he seemed more determined than ever to keep the story alive. On his morning show, Undisputed D, he didn't just rehash his earlier points, he doubled down with even more conviction. This time, he brought up old footage from previous games, highlighting moments where the WNBA star appeared to display similar behavior toward other opponents. "This isn't an isolated incident," he declared, his voice rising with each word. "It's a pattern, and patterns matter." Skip leaned forward in his chair, his signature intensity on full display as he played clips of past games. In one, she could be seen laughing after blocking a shot. In another, she gestured theatrically after stealing the ball. To Skip, these moments weren't just examples of competitive fire. They were evidence of something deeper. He argued that her actions carried a tone that couldn't be ignored, especially when viewed through the lens of race. His co-hosts shifted, uncomfortably in their seats, clearly uneasy about the direction the conversation was taking. One of them tried to interject, suggesting that maybe Skip was reading too much into things. "Look, I get it, you're saying this is about accountability," the co-host said cautiously. "But don't you think we should give her the benefit of the doubt? Maybe this is just how she plays the game." Skip wasn't having it. He waved off the comment with a dismissive flick of his hand, insisting that avoiding uncomfortable truths only perpetuated the problem. "We can't sugarcoat this," he said firmly. "If we want real change, we have to call things out, even when it's hard." The segment quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the week. Social media lit up once again, with fans debating whether Skip was being courageous or reckless. Some praised him for shining a light on issues that often went unaddressed in sports. Others accused him of cherry-picking moments to fit his narrative, twisting facts to suit his agenda. The backlash intensified when several major advertisers pulled their support from his show, citing concerns over divisive rhetoric. Yet, ironically, Skip's ratings soared. Viewership numbers hit record highs, proving that controversy sells, even if it comes at a cost. Meanwhile, the WNBA star remained silent, but her absence only fueled speculation. Fans dissected every move she made, searching for clues about how she might respond. Would she address the accusations directly, or would she let her gameplay do the talking? As the days passed, the pressure mounted, not just on her, but on everyone involved. Coaches, teammates, and league officials found themselves dragged into the fray, forced to answer questions they likely never expected to face. For the NCAA player at the heart of the controversy, the situation was equally challenging. While she had already released a statement, many felt it wasn't enough. Critics claimed she needed to push back harder, to defend herself against what they saw as baseless attacks. Supporters, on the other hand, urged her to stay above the fray, arguing that responding further would only escalate the drama. Caught between competing expectations, she chose to focus on her team, keeping her head down and letting her performance speak for itself. As the weekend approached, the debate spilled beyond sports circles, reaching mainstream audiences who might not have followed basketball closely before. Late-night talk shows joked about Skip's latest rant, while morning news programs invited experts to weigh in on the broader implications of the controversy. Was this really about racism, or was it simply a case of misinterpreted competitiveness? Could two athletes unintentionally spark such a heated national conversation? These were the kinds of questions dominating living rooms and office break rooms across the country. Even within the sports community, opinions remained sharply divided. Some commentators sided with Skip, agreeing that certain behaviors warranted scrutiny. They pointed out that athletes, like anyone else in the public eye, had a responsibility to consider how their actions might be perceived. Others, however, defended the WNBA star, arguing that holding her to an impossible standard of perfection was unfair. "She's human," one analyst said during a televised panel discussion. "And humans make mistakes. Let's not turn a single moment into a referendum on her character." The tension wasn't limited to TV screens and social media feeds. It played out in real life, too. At schools, workplaces, and community events, people couldn't stop talking about it. Parents used the controversy as a teaching moment, discussing the importance of empathy and understanding with their kids. Friends debated passionately over coffee or lunch, sometimes agreeing to disagree but always walking away with a deeper appreciation for the complexity of the issue. Amid all the noise, there were also quieter voices calling for unity. Grassroots movements began popping up online, encouraging fans to celebrate women's basketball rather than tearing it apart. Hashtags like #Iskiers support women in sports gained traction, offering a counter-narrative to the endless cycle of conflict. For some, this was a reminder that sports had the power to bring people together, even in the face of division. Still, the central question lingered: what would happen next? Would the WNBA star finally break her silence and address the accusations head-on? Would Skip continue to dominate the conversation, or would he eventually step back and let the dust settle? And most importantly, could the two athletes find a way to move past the controversy and focus on what truly mattered? Their love for the game. As Saturday dawned, the world waited with bated breath. The stakes were higher than ever, and no one knew where the story would go from here. But one thing was certain: whatever happened next, it would leave a lasting impact, not just on the players involved, but on the entire sports landscape. By Sunday evening, the sports world, and much of the internet, was still buzzing. The WNBA star had finally decided to speak up, and when she did, it was impossible to look away. She went live on Instagram, sitting in her living room with soft lighting behind her. Her expression was calm but clearly emotional, as if she'd been holding back for days and now couldn't anymore. For a moment, she just stared at the camera, taking a deep breath before diving into what she needed to say. First off, she began, her voice steady but tinged with frustration. "I want to make one thing clear. I am not a racist." The words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. She explained that her actions during the game weren't meant to target anyone based on race. They were simply part of how she played. "I've always been competitive, sometimes too competitive," she admitted. "But my competitiveness has never been about someone's skin color. It's about winning, plain and simple." As she spoke, viewers could see the sincerity in her eyes. She talked about the pressure athletes face to perform at their best, especially women in sports who often deal with unfair criticism no matter what they do. "We're judged differently," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "If we're tough, we're labeled aggressive. If we're quiet, we're called weak. There's no winning sometimes." Her honesty resonated with many fans, particularly women who understood exactly what she was talking about. She also addressed Skip Bayless directly, calling him out by name for turning her into a villain. "He doesn't know me," she said, firmly. "He doesn't know how hard I've worked or the struggles I've faced, but he's using my name and my reputation to get clicks and ratings. That's not okay." Her comments struck a nerve, not just with her supporters but even with some critics who had initially sided with Skip. Watching her defend herself so passionately made people question whether the controversy was really about accountability or just sensationalism. Her Instagram live session lasted nearly 20 minutes, and by the end she looked visibly drained. But she closed with a message of gratitude, thanking her teammates, coaches, and fans for standing by her during such a difficult time. "At the end of the day," she said softly, "I'm just trying to play the game I love, and I hope that's something we can all agree on." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with support for her, with hashtags like #RespectHerGame trending within hours. Fans praised her for speaking her truth while remaining composed under immense pressure. Even some of her harshest critics softened their stance, acknowledging that maybe they'd jumped to conclusions without hearing her side of the story. Skip Bayless, however, wasn't swayed. On Monday morning's episode of Undisputed, he wasted no time responding to her emotional plea. "Look, I respect her right to tell her story," he said, leaning forward in his chair as usual. "But let's not confuse emotion with evidence." He argued that her explanation didn't address the core issue, why so many people interpreted her behavior as racially charged. "Intent matters, sure," he continued, "but impact matters more, and the impact here speaks for itself." His co-hosts pushed back harder this time, challenging him to consider the possibility that he might be wrong. One of them pointed out that accusing someone of racism was serious business and shouldn't be done lightly. Another suggested that perhaps Skip had overstepped by bringing race into the conversation without concrete proof. For once, Skip seemed slightly rattled, though he quickly recovered, insisting that his job was to ask tough questions, even if others didn't like it. The tension between Skip and his co-hosts became a subplot of its own, drawing mixed reactions from viewers. Some appreciated their willingness to challenge him, seeing it as a sign of journalistic integrity. Others dismissed it as performative, accusing them of playing devil's advocate just to keep the show interesting. Either way, it added another layer of drama to an already chaotic situation. Meanwhile, the NCAA player involved weighed in again, releasing a second statement through her team. Like her first, it was carefully worded, but this time, she focused less on herself and more on the bigger picture. "This week has shown us that there's still work to be done," she wrote. "Not just in sports, but in how we treat each other as human beings. Let's use this moment to grow, not divide." Her words struck a chord with many, offering a sense of hope amid all the negativity. Supporters praised her for rising above the conflict and focusing on unity, while detractors accused her of being overly diplomatic. Regardless of where people stood, her statement shifted the tone of the conversation slightly, reminding everyone of the shared humanity behind the headlines. As the week wore on, the controversy began to take its toll on everyone involved. The WNBA star canceled several public appearances, citing personal reasons, while the NCAA player reportedly turned down multiple interview requests. Both women were clearly exhausted, their energy drained by days of relentless scrutiny. Fans started to wonder if the constant attention was doing more harm than good. Even Skip seemed to feel the strain. While his ratings remained sky-high, his credibility took a hit among certain demographics. Critics accused him of exploiting sensitive topics for profit, while defenders insisted he was simply doing his job. Advertisers continued to pull out, forcing the network to reconsider its reliance on provocative content. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed that executives were debating whether to rein him in or risk alienating even more sponsors. Despite the mounting challenges, the story, refused to fade. Sports analysts dissected every angle, from the ethics of media commentary to the role of race in competition. Late-night hosts joked about the absurdity of it all, while daytime talk shows invited experts to weigh in on the broader implications. It felt like the entire country was caught up in the drama, with opinions divided almost evenly. For some, the controversy highlighted the complexities of modern sports, the intersection of competition, identity, and media influence. For others, it was a reminder of how far society still had to go in addressing issues of race and respect. Whatever the perspective, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about two athletes anymore. It was about all of us. How we communicate, how we judge, and how we move forward when things get messy. As Friday approached, the world braced itself for what might come next. Would the WNBA star and the NCAA player find a way to reconcile? Would Skip finally step back, or would he continue to push the envelope? And most importantly, could the sports community heal from the rift this controversy had created? No one knew for sure, but everyone agreed that the outcome would shape the future of women's basketball, and perhaps sports as a whole, for years to come. By the middle of the following week, the controversy had reached a point where it couldn't be ignored any longer, not even by the leagues themselves. The WNBA and NCAA, both watching the situation unfold with growing concern, knew they had to step in. Fans were divided, emotions were running high, and sponsors were starting to question their investments. Something had to give. On Wednesday morning, the WNBA released an official statement addressing the ongoing drama. The statement was short but deliberate, calling for mutual respect among players, commentators, and fans alike. "We believe in celebrating the talent, hard work, and sportsmanship of our athletes," it read. "While competition is at the heart of what we do, it should never come at the expense of dignity or unity." It didn't mention anyone by name, nor did it take sides. Instead, it focused on the bigger picture, the importance of fostering a positive environment for women's basketball to thrive. The NCAA followed suit later that day, releasing a similar message. Their statement emphasized the need for open dialogue and understanding, urging everyone involved to rise above the conflict. "This is a moment for reflection," they wrote. "Let us use this opportunity to grow as a community and support one another in the pursuit of excellence." While the statements were well received by some, others felt they fell short. Critics argued that the leagues were being too vague, avoiding accountability rather than addressing the specific issues at hand. "They're tiptoeing around the problem," one fan tweeted. "If they really cared, they'd call out the behavior that caused all this in the first place." Supporters, however, praised the leagues for taking a neutral stance, believing that stepping into the fray would only make things worse. To back up their words, the WNBA announced plans to host a roundtable discussion featuring current and former players, coaches, and sports analysts. The goal was to tackle tough topics like sportsmanship, media responsibility, and racial dynamics head-on. They invited Skip Bayless to participate, though many wondered whether he'd accept. His response came quickly. He agreed to join, but not without stirring up more drama. In a tweet posted shortly after the announcement, Skip made it clear that he wouldn't hold back during the discussion. "If I'm coming to the table, I'm bringing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes people," he wrote. The comment drew mixed reactions. Some applauded his willingness to engage, seeing it as a chance to clear the air. Others accused him of using the platform to further his own agenda, predicting that the roundtable would devolve into yet another shouting match. As details about the event began to emerge, anticipation built. Who would moderate? What questions would be asked? Would the two athletes at the center of the storm attend? Speculation ran wild, with fans weighing in on everything from seating arrangements to potential breakout moments. For many, it felt like the sports equivalent of a courtroom drama, a chance to see justice served or at least clarity achieved. Skip, meanwhile, continued to dominate headlines. In the days leading up to the roundtable, he appeared on multiple shows, doubling down on his accusations while also hinting at new evidence he planned to present. "People aren't ready for what I have to say," he teased during one interview. "But if we're serious about having honest conversations, then we need to face facts. even when they're ugly. His comments reignited debates online, with supporters praising his boldness and critics accusing him of exploiting the situation for ratings. Some argued that his refusal to back down was admirable, proof that he wasn't afraid to challenge powerful institutions. Others saw it as reckless, warning that his tactics could harm the very athletes and leagues he claimed to champion. Amid the chaos, grassroots movements gained momentum. Fans frustrated with the endless drama began organizing campaigns to shift the focus back to the game itself. Hashtags like #MyArn celebrate basketball and our focus on the game trended across platforms, encouraging people to appreciate the skill and dedication of the athletes rather than tearing them apart. Local communities held watch parties for upcoming games, using the events as opportunities to unite rather than divide. For the players involved, the pressure remained immense. The WNBA star attended practice but kept her interactions with the media minimal, letting her performance speak for itself. Teammates rallied around her, defending her character and urging fans to judge her based on her actions, not accusations. "She's one of the hardest working people I know," one teammate said during a post-practice interview. "Anyone who doubts her doesn't understand what it takes to compete at this level." The NCAA player, meanwhile, leaned into her role as a peacemaker. During a charity event over the weekend, she spoke briefly about the importance of forgiveness and moving forward. "We're all human," she said, smiling warmly at the crowd. "And humans make mistakes, but we also have the power to learn from those mistakes and grow." Her remarks earned applause, with many praising her maturity and grace under pressure. As the date of the roundtable approached, tensions reached a boiling point. Would Skip's presence derail the conversation, or would it force people to confront uncomfortable truths? Could the league strike a balance between accountability and healing? And most importantly, would the athletes find a way to put the controversy behind them and focus on what truly mattered, their love for the game? By Sunday evening, the world was holding its breath. The stage was set for a showdown unlike anything the sports world had seen before. Analysts predicted fireworks, while fans hoped for resolution. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. It would leave a lasting impact, not just on the players involved, but on the entire sports community. The roundtable discussion finally arrived, and it was everything people expected, and more. Held in a sleek conference room at a neutral location, the event brought together an eclectic mix of voices: former WNBA legends, retired college coaches, sports psychologists, media experts, and even a few fans selected through a lottery system. The atmosphere was tense but charged with anticipation. Cameras rolled as the moderator opened the session, setting the tone for what promised to be a candid and emotional conversation. Skip Bayless took his seat at the table, looking every bit the polarizing figure he'd become. His presence alone drew murmurs from the audience, some supportive, others hostile. Across from him sat the WNBA star, her expression calm but guarded. Next to her was the NCAA player, exuding quiet confidence. For many viewers, seeing the two athletes share space after weeks of heated controversy felt surreal. Would they exchange words? Would tensions flare? Everyone leaned in, eager to find out. The moderator wasted no time diving into the heart of the matter. "Let's start with the incident itself," she said, addressing both players. "From your perspectives, what happened on that court?" The NCAA player spoke first, choosing her words carefully. She described the block and the follow-up gesture, admitting that it had stung in the moment. "It wasn't just about the shot being blocked," she explained. "It was how it made me feel afterward, like I wasn't respected." When it was the WNBA star's turn, she nodded thoughtfully before responding. "I never intended to disrespect anyone," she said firmly. "Yes, I'm competitive. Yes, I trash talk sometimes, but if my actions came off as hurtful, then I apologize for that." Her apology wasn't overly dramatic or performative. It was simple and sincere, earning nods of approval from several panelists. Skip jumped in almost immediately, leaning forward with his trademark intensity. "But here's the question we need to ask," he interjected. "Why did so many people interpret those actions as racially motivated? Is it possible that there's a pattern here worth examining?" His comment reignited the tension, prompting sharp responses from other participants. One former WNBA legend, a black woman who had faced similar accusations during her career, took the mic next. "We can't ignore the racial undertones of this debate," she said pointedly. "But let's not confuse intent with perception. Just because something feels racist doesn't mean it is. What we should focus on is why these misunderstandings happen in the first place." Her perspective resonated deeply, sparking a broader discussion about the intersection of race, competition, and media narratives. A sports psychologist added another layer, explaining how unconscious biases shape our interpretations of behavior. "We see what we expect to see," he said. "And when you factor in societal stereotypes, it's easy to misread someone's intentions, even if they're coming from a good place." As the conversation unfolded, the athletes listened intently, occasionally chiming in with personal anecdotes. The NCAA player shared stories of facing criticism for her playing style, while the WNBA star talked about the double standards female athletes often face. Their openness humanized them, reminding everyone that behind the headlines were real people navigating complex challenges. Skip continued to push boundaries, challenging panelists to confront uncomfortable truths. At one point, he turned to the NCAA player and asked directly, "Do you believe racism played a role in this situation?" The room fell silent, all eyes on her. After a long pause, she shook her head. "Honestly, I don't think so," she replied. "I think it was more about competitiveness and miscommunication than anything else." Her answer surprised many, including Skip himself, who seemed momentarily caught off guard. By the end of the 2-hour session, there was no definitive resolution, but there was progress. The athletes hugged briefly before leaving the stage, a gesture captured by cameras and shared widely online. For fans, it symbolized a step toward healing, proof that even in the face of conflict, understanding was possible. In the days that followed, reactions poured in from all corners. Some praised the roundtable for fostering honest dialogue, while others dismissed it as too little, too late. Skip's role remained divisive. Some credited him for forcing tough conversations, while others accused him of exploiting the situation for ratings. Regardless, his influence couldn't be denied. The controversy had sparked important discussions about accountability, empathy, and the power of sports to reflect societal issues. For the WNBA star and the NCAA player, life slowly began returning to normal. Both returned to their teams, focusing on the upcoming season and letting their gameplay do the talking. Fans rallied around them, celebrating their talent and resilience. Grassroots movements gained traction, encouraging unity and respect within women's basketball. Hashtags like Tottenham Play Fair and Respect the Game trended, signaling a shift in the narrative. Skip Bayless, meanwhile, continued to dominate headlines, though his credibility took a hit among certain demographics. Advertisers remained hesitant, forcing his network to reconsider its reliance on provocative content. Yet, despite the backlash, he refused to apologize, insisting that his job was to spark debate, not silence it. In the end, the saga served as a reminder of the complexities surrounding modern sports. It highlighted the pressures athletes face, the influence of media, and the importance of having difficult conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. As fans looked ahead to future matchups, they hoped the focus would return to the incredible skill and passion that made women's basketball so special. And so, as the dust settled, one thing became clear. While controversies may fade, their impact lingers. They challenge us to grow, to listen, and to strive for better, not just in sports but in life.